joining us today. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll start with welcome and introductions. I'm going to tell you that my name is Dawn Vick. I'm with the Wisconsin Department of Administration, our Division of Intergovernmental Relations, and we are here today for a public hearing on the cooperative plan between the Village of Sussex and the Town of Lisbon. Sitting with me are staff members.
My name is Renee Powers. I lead the Municipal Boundary Review Program as well as the Plat Review Program for the department.
My name is Eric Schmidtke and I work in the Municipal Boundary Review Program. In addition to cooperative plans, we also do other boundary related functions like annexations, detachments, consolidations, incorporations.
And then on the phone, joining us virtually is our attorney, Alexandra Arkin. So Alex is joining us virtually for that. In the room, if someone from Town of Lisbon could introduce who's here for the Town of Lisbon.
We have Supervisor Plotecker, Supervisor Brom, Clerk Capazio, and Administrator Nicholas. Did I miss anyone?
Chairman Osterman just walked in.
And Chairman Osterman.
All right, thank you. And who is here on behalf of the Village of Sussex?
How's that? Okay. I'm Stan Riffle. I represent both the Town of Lisbon and the Village of Sussex. Curiously, that I'll explain when I get up and talk to you all. But Jerry Smith, the administrator from the Village of Sussex, and Anthony Ledon is the president of the Village of Sussex, and they are both present today.
So before we begin, I'm just going to go through some background about why we're here, how the hearing is going to go, and the procedures, the procedural instructions. So this hearing was requested by a resident from the Town of Lisbon, according to Wisconsin statute, which permits any person to request a hearing if the request is within 10 days following the department's receipt of the cooperative plan for review. So we did receive that request, so that's why we're here tonight for the public hearing. The purpose of today's hearing is to listen to testimony from the Village of Sussex and the Town of Lisbon on their proposed cooperative plan, as well as from area residents and from others interested in the cooperative plan. The testimony will be used to help the department apply its statutory review standards in statute 66.0307. This hearing is not a court type hearing. There are no rules of evidence, no swearing in or cross-examinations of witnesses, no objections, etc. So when you're making your comments, please direct those comments to us and not others in the room. And if you have questions, also direct those to department staff, not others in the room. Now, after you leave here tonight, if you think of anything that you haven't said or you wanted to say, you have 10 days to submit additional comments to us in writing. So don't be afraid to follow up with us in writing with any comments or additional things that you may want to tell us. 10 days is March 28th. So Monday, March 28th is when we would have to receive those additional written comments by. Now, the where to send them is on the bottom of the agenda. There's a snail mail address and there is also the email address. So you can send them to that Wisconsin Municipal Boundary Review at wisconsin.gov email address. So on the very bottom of the agenda. So please feel free to send the comments there. Now, no decision on the proposed cooperative plan will be made today at the hearing. So this is just a hearing for us to hear from you. So there were handouts in the back of the room. If you haven't had a chance to get them, you can go get them. What we have in the handout is the agenda, which basically shows how tonight is going to go. There's also a cooperative plan flow chart that shows where we are. So the public hearing is right here, listed here. And as you can see, there's a flow of where we are. So the public hearing is almost to that very last step. So the it shows here we're near the end of the process. We have to issue a decision within 90 days, which in this case will be no later than April 26th is when we will issue our decision. And our decision will be based on whether the statutory review criteria are met or can be met. The department has three options. We can approve the plan, deny it, or return it to the communities with recommended changes. So that's the only thing we can do. We can approve, deny, or return it with recommended changes. The other handout is the statutory standards. So this is the statutory standards handout. This shows specific statutory criteria the department will be examining during its review. So according to law, these are the only things we can take into consideration when we are reviewing the plan. So testimony and comments which closely relate to these statutory criteria are going to be the most relevant and helpful to us because these are what we are looking at and making our determination. And then the final handout up there is the hearing registration slip. So if you'd like to offer comments and testify, you can fill this out. If you'd like to just offer comments and register in favor or against, you can do that without having to get up and say a word. So that's what that's here for. If you need to leave early, please let me know and we'll make sure that you're able to speak as quickly as possible. So with that, we are going to start. I know I do have some testimony slips right here. And I do have one person who does need to leave early. Do you want to testify before the town and the village give their comments, Cheryl? You want to wait? Yeah. A little bit, okay. No, Cheryl, you too. Okay, so you have to come up to the microphone for your comments.
Hi. Do you need my address and all that stuff?
If you could say your name and yeah, give your address. Well, just say your name. I have your address on the slip.
Okay, Cheryl Pless from Town of Lisbon. Okay, I'm against the decision to detach, or could it be arranged another way? Hasn't the good of the people of Lisbon lost enough property to Sussex? I have been in Lisbon since my grade school years. Now my husband and I are retired and we choose to live in the town of Lisbon. Like all others, we enjoy the excellent taste of our well water. It's really sad that all of our good and safe water would get capped off and go to Sussex, especially when natural water is at a high demand. And if this would occur to be attached to Sussex, the good folks of Lisbon who have never had to pay for water would have to start paying for water for their farming, their animals, their pools, and etc. And that could be a lot costly bill for them. I know that Sussex uses Lisbon's water to equalize and bring levels to a safe number, which means, which I look at that Sussex is gaining, but what are these 63 properties or the people that are against this decision, what are they getting out of it? Lisbon has not been forthwith or transparent, in my opinion. We have followed the protocol and yet get sidelined, pushed back, and put at a standstill. I'm not up here talking just in my behalf, but for those fellow Lisbon property owners who are much more afraid than I. Thank you to talk up here. Okay,
Thank you. And then anyone else who needs to leave right away who submitted a testimony slip? All right, let me ask, is there anyone participating online that's indicated they need to offer testimony?
No one online other than Attorney Arkin.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I guess I'd like to hear from the Village of Sussex and the Town of Lisbon and your unique arrangement, Stan.
Well, that would be me. I think you are all familiar that there has been somewhat of a rather lengthy history related to the relationship between the village and the town. It goes back to certainly in my tenure, 40 years representing municipalities in this county, at least 25, 30 years of strife. With stops and starts of trying to get along with one another. There have been 2 or 3 attempts on the part of the town to incorporate. And in each occasion, you, the Department of Administration, have pointed out things that really should be attended to and have urged in each occasion that both parties, come on, get together, work together, and put together a cooperative boundary plan. It's in your determinations. And so once and for all, and finally, the town and the village, with some new leadership in the village and some change of heart in the town, have in the last 2 years really worked hard to try to heed the requests and the recommendations of the Department of Administration, and have finally reached a point where they put together a cooperative boundary agreement that accomplished the things that you have pointed out that are problems in this region. Certainly with regard to the boundaries, where we have lots of, as a matter of fact, 63 incursions, bad lines, what would make sense from a regional perspective. And I'm going to talk about those folks that are caught up in this, and they are. You've seen it everywhere, and you know that is sometimes a concern. And I'm also going to talk to you about how the town and the village have attempted to deal with that concern. And that's outside of the cooperative boundary plan, because that's not part of the cooperative boundary plan, but I will give you some information in terms of how the village and the town have attempted to address it. But about a year and a half ago, the town and the village entered into a 660301 agreement that really is identical to what you're seeing here. And the 63 property owners, under 6301, they have a right to seek the circuit court order to allow them to have a binding referendum as it relates to whether or not that contract will be going into force and effect as it relates to their being detached from the town and attached to the village, which is under that 660301 agreement. After some involvement with the circuit court has agreed that there will be a referendum with regard to the viability of the 660301 agreement, and that will occur at our spring election in April. And I quite anticipate that that election will result in a rejection of the 660301 agreement. Recognizing that, and under the specific terms of the 660301 agreement that contemplates that could have been a possibility, there's a provision in that 660301 agreement that says, should that happen, we'll go and prepare a 660307 cooperative boundary plan and present it to the department, which we have, and that's why we're all here today. Now, what has changed in the last 25 years? The town of Lisbon, beyond projections that we thought, village, town, and well, not the town necessarily, but you, and our last determination has grown incredibly. It is now virtually built out. And the village has understood and recognized that, you know what, they're at a place where they probably should be incorporated at this point, and that's what you're going to hear next. I mean, in the next filing, and that's coming down the road. But recognizing that and trying to be proactive and regionally aware, the village finally made a determination that, okay, let's have a divorce settlement, and let's have that be a very, very good thing. And that is what prompted the 660301 agreement and the cooperative boundary plan before you. And so the town and the village jointly worked to prepare this cooperative boundary plan. And I think it's a really, really good plan. I think it's very thorough. I think it hits all of the requirements under the statute, which I will go through just for purposes of going through it. I'm not going to get into detail with regard to the plan itself. You have read it. You have read hundreds, if not thousands, of cooperative boundary plans. So you know more than I, what is a good solid boundary plan. But the reason that the legislature put 0307 in place in the first place was not to have something necessarily that just was lip service. This is not. It's solid. It's not only adjusting boundaries, which it does, but it is also solid in joint services, joint planning. All of those elements are in this plan. It's a very, very good plan, and it is solidly and 100% supported, 100% by all of the elected officials of both municipalities. So, I mean, if we want to go through the provisions of 0307 as it relates to what needs to be in the plan, 3A, who may prepare the plan, the participating municipalities, and both of them were involved in the creation of this plan. They both were involved, as you note, and in most of these plans, they're very heavy on, okay, you got the language in the plan itself, but all the exhibits are really the meat of what happens, where things are. The village, probably more so than the town, had the availability and resources to put those together. They did. Purpose of the plan absolutely guides and accomplishes a coordinated, adjusted, and harmonious development of this territory. It is really a plan for the build out of the 36 square miles that are involved here. Both within, well, the village, obviously, they're not really dealt with as much as the town in terms of future development because they're pretty well developed, but both of their comprehensive plans are 100% in sync with this cooperative boundary plan. And C of sub 3, consistency of plan. There are provisions in there that point to individual sections of both the town comprehensive plan and the village comprehensive plan that point you to the fact that this plan is 100% consistent with the individual plans of both municipalities. So under D, we have to explain many areas within the plan. First, identify the boundary changes and the existing boundaries that may not be changed during the planning period. It shows that immediately upon completion of approval of this plan, that territory shifts from the town to the village and some areas from the village to the town, which is kind of unique, I think. You probably haven't seen too many of those. Trying to smooth out the boundaries consistent with the direction of the Department of Administration. And there is one parcel there that is admittedly conditioned in the future relating to the sale or transfer of that property. You might guess that that was a former town board member, and we're play, I'm sorry? Paying homage, and trying to, okay, well, you got it. So identify any conditions that must be met before the boundary change may occur. I just dealt with that. Include a schedule, a period of time during which boundary change shall or may occur. It will be immediate with regard to all properties but one. Explanation of how any part of the plan related to the location boundaries meets the approval criteria under 5C5 of 660307, which says it deals with the shape and whether there aren't any arbitrary, aspects of it. It deals with homogeneity and compactness. And what was attempted here was to address what has been pointed out in the past by the department as it relates to problems with the shape, the boundary. And so this smooths everything out. It takes care of everything that the department has previously identified as being problematic. And then we get to 4M, identify all highways within the territory covered by the plan, which each participating municipality has jurisdiction. This gave the town and the village the opportunity to sit down and look at every stretch of road where they share, and they share many, many roads. And they've divvied up jurisdiction with regard to every road, street, highway that they share jurisdiction of. And it's delineated in great detail in this cooperative boundary plan. It was actually a great opportunity to do that, and made them think and say, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. This makes sense. And that's what they did. And that's in this plan. And next, describe the services to be provided in the territory covered by the plan, providers of those services, and whether or not there's been preliminary approval of governmental regulatory authority. So the plan is very detailed by reference to two intergovernmental agreements, one for sewer and one for water, that are in place, in force, in effect, and that will be the future of providing services on an extraterritorial basis. And you've seen many, many times that a village does not, or a city, incorporated municipality doesn't have to extend services beyond its territory. But because it has been recognized in the village that more customers are good, and they do have the capacity to deal with those customers, except to the extent that they don't, and then there are limits on how much they have to give. It makes sense to broaden the customer base to lower cost to the village. And in concert with that, then the town has the opportunity to develop its new industrial and commercial base in the 2 or 3 TID districts that are anticipated. So it is extremely positive, and it's the right approach as it relates to the future service that will be needed in this, in the town that is quite urbanized and urbanizing at this point. Schedule for delivery of the services, it's all in those agreements. It's all in place, and essentially the time frame is as soon as the town could put in the extension of those services in those areas that are identified in the 2 agreements and the maps associated with the service areas. Explanation of how provision under the plan for delivery of necessary municipal services is covered by the plan meets with the approval criterion under sub 5, which sub 5 states adequate provision is made in the cooperative plan for the delivery of municipal services to the territory covered in the plan. Ditto what I just said. It's in the agreements. It's in the plan by reference. Sub 8, designate the municipalities that are participating in the plan. Well, I represent both of them. So we go to E, content of plan, compatibility with the existing law. Nothing changes as it relates to all state, federal shoreland ordinances in the town are still in place up and to the point in time that they incorporate. The village ordinances are all in place. Nothing has changed other than you will note that, and this is covered in a different section, but I'll just do it now while I have it in my mind. The village is ceding its extraterritorial zoning and land division rights in most areas other than the 4 joint planning areas, which is the planning part of this agreement. The content of planning period, both parties are going to be asking you to waive the 10-year period as it relates to the boundaries, which you have the authority to do, so that they can be in place immediately, with the exception of that guy over there, which will be a condition in the future upon transfer of that property. Content of plan zoning agreement. It'll include any agreements under sub 7M, which deals with zoning. As I told you before, the changes to that relate to the 4 planning areas that are called the Sussex, what do we call that? The entry areas, the gateway areas, where the town has agreed to adopt the village standards as it relates to development, so that the village, when they're transferring in, some people might think that they're village, so that they are, high standard, because these are areas that will be commercial and these are areas that will be industrial, and both the town very much wants those to be at the highest standards, and the village, of course, agrees they want to be at the highest standards. There's provisions in there as to if there has to be submissions to the village when it comes time to develop the undeveloped areas in those gateways. Some of those gateways are already developed. Some are going to be new TID. But when it comes time to actually finalize, when you get the developer in there wants to do this, the town will send plans to the village will review them, get back promptly to the town, say, yeah, I think they meet our standards, or no, I think, this X, Y, and Z doesn't. And then they get together and they try to resolve it. And if they can't resolve it, there's a provision that says that the county park and planning department will be the final arbiter as to whether it does or does not. So nice, clean, don't have to go to court, don't have to have those fights. We're done with fighting. And so that's in the agreement. So the existing plan may be used. The cooperative plan may be based on, containing elements, or duplicating any existing plan for the same territory. As I said, this is basically a cut and paste of the 660301 agreement that they have already reached, and we're just trying to put it into place now. So you're going to hear from some folks that are, quote, displaced by this agreement. Obviously, it made sense after hearing it time and time again from the state that you really ought to get together and try to straighten these borders out. It doesn't make sense for folks that have availability of sewer service, water service, that are, islands, inserts, that sort of thing, to remain in the town. And so this agreement does have those, I think there's 63 properties detached. Now, the main problem of this point in time that we've heard as it relates to concerns of those 63 property owners is many of them are subject to deferred special assessments for services, primarily water. Are there any sewer deferred assessments and sewer, which run into 20s, 30s of thousands of dollars? So what has happened is the town and the village have worked together and will be paying every one of those special assessments. So those property owners will not have one dime as it relates to paying for those deferred special assessments, right, Jeremy? Right. And so you'll still hear that they'll have money that they have to expend to extend, to cap their wells, do what you need to do under DNR regulations to get rid of your septic system. But at some point in time, those are going to fail. It just is going to happen at some point in time. And then they will either have to dig their new well, and if they have an alternate area for a septic system, they'll have to put it in. But they will not pay 1 penny for those deferred special assessments. They will have to cap on their own dime what they have. And they will also have to pay for the extension of laterals to serve their homes. But from the village's perspective, and the town's perspective, they believe that's a benefit to their property. It ensures, service forever. And I'm going to get some, cat calls back here, but that's just the way it is. They think it's in the best interest. Well, we shouldn't, as government, tell people what's in their best interest. That's what's going to happen. Whether it's in their best interest or not, that's up for them to judge. But I just wanted to tell you the backstory on that so that you know that when these folks come up, there will be no special assessments that are deferred that run into $50 or $100 or $200,000. It will not be levied against them. So that's in place, right, Mr. President? And that's done. So with that, I don't know if you want to go to questions or you want to go to your public hearing. Ms. Vick, any way you want to handle it. I appreciate your time, everybody.
Okay, before you go. So I have one question. I haven't been doing this as long as Eric and Renee, so I haven't run into this before. But why is the transfer of the territory immediate? This will be my first plan where that's been requested. Why the immediacy?
Because you're going to rip off the Band-Aid and get it done.
All right, Eric. Eric has wait.
Yep. Excuse me. In further answer of your question, Ms. Vick.
No, it's a no. Okay, sorry.
I'm Jeremy Smith. I'm the village administrator. Most of these 63 properties have been scheduled to come to the village of Sussex since the 1999 border agreement between the village and the town. And so because they've been outstanding to come to the village for 30 years, the parties felt like it was time to make this transaction happen.
Okay, thank you. Eric, you had questions?
So is there currently sewer and water to Lisbon, or is this agreement going to bring it to Lisbon for the first time?
No, there are areas within Lisbon, Lisbon Sanitary District number 1 that are served right now. And there's expansion of areas as it relates to sewer. Water, not to this point, I don't believe. Okay, well, did we get that area over done? I'm gonna bring Jeremy up because he knows this stuff.
We serve water to this building we're in right here, to the elementary schools that are in the town of Lisbon, to the high school that's in the town of Lisbon. So there is various pockets that already provided water by the village. Sewer is into the sanitary district, and the town of Lisbon has certain, this agreement does have some maps showing where we will expand those services as part of this agreement, particularly 3 water areas around certain parts of the town that have some water quality problems. Those neighborhoods will be able to be served by this agreement. And that will really be a health benefit for those 3 particular neighborhoods that are being served. So we already provide water and sewer in certain limited areas. This will expand that.
All right, I think that's it for the questions that Eric and I had. All right, so Anthony and Judith, if you'd like to offer your testimony now, I understand you have to leave fairly quickly.
Oh, yeah. Here on behalf of her. basically offers nothing to me to be part of this agreement. Unless you're bringing sewer and water down Plainview Road, which doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon. That's pretty much all I have to say. Any questions of me?
No, thank you,
Okay.
thank you. All right, let's see, John Plesey.
John Plus.
Plus.
Yeah, I'm totally against this and under my learning of this meeting, now I know I thought this was for the people of the town of Lisbon to come to, so we could tell the state our part of the story and where we are, not the talk. I hope there's enough room for everybody to get into this.
Well, we'll
That
be
it goes
here,
till
yes,
6.
so
Okay.
it says we'll go for 6, but if there's more people here to offer testimony, we stay.
Okay. Okay, now, I moved to my house 30 years ago, and the village president then said I'd never have to go into Sussex. That's all over with now, so. But I'm totally against this for so many reasons, is that where I live, there's no sewer there at all. We are an island. I understand the situation, getting rid of the islands. If you want to get rid of the islands, they created them. Not these residents didn't create them, they created them. They should come up with help on the easements and assessments on their property. And majority of the people here, I believe, that have sewer and water in front of their houses don't have it yet. They don't have an assessment on what they're supposed to, where they're gonna end up getting paid, having to pay. So they don't even know what it is. It's just gonna come in the mail someday. We have, at our house, we have great water. We have good sewer. We don't need anything that Sussex has to offer us. There's a offer of some monies to residents to pay for their assessments on their properties, but doesn't include any of the other properties that are in the town. The town of Lisbon is putting nothing out. They're gaining everything. I don't think there's probably, out of all these people here, maybe there's 10 people that aren't on Social Security right now. So where is the money supposed to come from when you're living on Social Security? But, and it isn't up to us it is up to us, guys, that you want to do, is there, they want to do, to make us pay for it. When we don't need it. This isn't right. That, my opinion, that should be against the law.
Thank you. Kelvin Cogs. Kelvin?
I'd just like to say that I'm not in favor of this either. My well's great, septic tank's great. Lived here for 58 years. I've seen all the subdivisions go around me. Village of Sussex has annexed a lot of land around me. There's 5 houses that are in the satellite area, and not a one of us are in favor of this because it brings nothing to us. It's just another headache that we're gonna have. That's all I got.
All right, thank you. Teresa?
Hi, Teresa Safransky. If you don't mind, I'm basically going to read from the letter that I have already sent to you, and I've added and changed a few things. So I live at North 71 West 24477 Good Hope Road. My property is on the south side of Good Hope Road, the westernmost property of where the boundary is redrawn. I'd like to be put on record as requesting to not be detached from the town since it's not economically feasible for my property to ever be hooked up to sewer and water. So I'm not in favor of the pending agreement. I don't consider my property an island as it's not surrounded on 4 sides by Sussex. And it's at least 10 feet below grade. So I'm told I would need at least 2 lifts in order to bring the water up to the sewers, which would be just very expensive. And it would also run through what is currently my septic system in the front yard. So that would again be economically unaffordable for myself or any future owners of that property to do. My water lines, I'm sorry, my water lines were installed at the curb on the west side of my property, opposite to where the water currently comes into my home on the east side of the property. And this was done on most of the properties on Good Hope Road. They were actually put on the wrong side of the properties. So which means those laterals again would have to go down 10 feet from grade under my driveway over to the east side of the house for the hookup. So it would not be possible for me to even afford to do that or for any future homeowner to do that. So when the work was being done, we brought it to the attention of the village engineer. And we were told it was that they weren't going to change anything. They were going where they were scheduled to go, and that was it. Pay for it later if you have to, but it's not being changed, which was unfortunate. I cannot afford an additional $50,000 or more for these water sewer hookups to my home, plus the cost of capping off a perfectly good well and filling in a perfectly good septic, which in fact, we, by law, DNR requires us to have them inspected and checked, and we do that. So it's perfectly fine. So I'm just requesting that if detached from Lisbon, I would like to not be required to do that hookup to water sewer if they should fail, and not a mechanical failure being according to the DNR, they can no longer be used. So I'm a widow, I'm on fixed income, and I can't afford any additional monthly payments. And I know that we had this offer of 1.4 million to pay for these assessments. I'd like that in writing in that agreement. Not that I don't trust Sussex and Lisbon, but I don't trust Sussex and Lisbon. Okay, been there long enough. So it needs to be added to any agreement. Anything that they've promised they will help us with needs to be in those agreements. And I understand that if these assessments aren't paid in 10 years, my property would be another $9,000 compounded interest to that. So if we don't get that 1.4, it's going to cost most of us a whole lot more at the end. I did not request to be annexed into the village. I did not request sewer and water come in front of my house. None of us did. So I would hope to be removed from the list of the properties included in the agreement or grandfathered in and not be required to hook up to sewer and water should I sell my property or transfer it to a family member. And also requesting deferred detachment for at least 30 years. This immediate detachment, I don't get. I don't get. So if I'm not allowed to remain in the town of Lisbon because I still deem my property as an island, which islands are usually surrounded by something on all sides, mine isn't. I've invited members of both the village and the town to meet with me at my property so they could see that it's not really feasible to do the hookups. But I've heard nothing from any of them. So again, I'd just like to be put on record that I don't agree with the agreement and that anything promised or told us gets put in writing and made a part of that agreement. So that's all I have. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right, Kristen Dean.
Hello, I'm Kristen Dine. I would like to speak on behalf of Tom and Joan Novak and Ron Sather as well. Just different issues that we're having with this being kicked out of Lisbon. I know Tom and Joan and Ron are retired. They're one of the many people here living on a fixed income, living on Social Security. They bought their homes. They've taken care of them. They've maintained them. This is where they planned on retiring, you know, just living their life happily. And this is going to affect all of them. I don't personally know their financial status, but I can't imagine with what they're already living on that they can afford this. That's one of my biggest heartbreakers. For one of you gentlemen mentioned, there's honest to God, less than 10 of us that are still actually actively working. And in my situation, we bought this property so I could be a stay-at-home mom. I have to go back to work. I have to get out and find a job now. That's my heartache, whatever but I can. I'm still young enough. I can get out and go to work. These people that are retired, they don't even have that option. So that's just heartbreaking to me. They're all good people. They're all kind people. It's very sad. So that is one of the reasons. Another thing that has come up is oftentimes in these meetings, I don't think I've missed maybe one. It was always proposed that these laterals that were built through the roads and stuff met up to all 63 of these properties. There's more than a couple here that's not true. There are no laterals in front of their properties. As well as the last lady said, our lateral was 20 years ago before we bought our property in our front yard, right in our front yard, directly in the middle of our house. And it would have to come all the way back around our house, which is not majorly set off the road, but a ways back. But either we go underneath our concrete driveway to do that, or all the way around our house to do that. And the thing is, it's no longer in the front of our house, it's across the street. And I think we have the closest out of many of these people that are built on the wrong side. The laterals were put in on the wrong side. So that's going to be an additional hardship for us. Let me see. Another topic is we haven't seen anything in writing that says that these laterals are going to be paid for. It's just been word of mouth, nothing to each of us telling us that this outstanding bill, when I bought my house, I was given an outstanding bill that said, if my septic and well fail, I have to pay the city of Sussex as an hook to Sussex. We've gone above and beyond to maintain our septic and well, taking good care of it, you know, knowing that if we did that, we wouldn't have to become Sussex. Another weird thing, and there's all kinds of whatever, I have medical documentation of my children can't drink fluoride. I can't get an exact count of what's in the Sussex fluoride. My children get violently ill if they drink water with fluoride in. We love our well water. My children drink water more than most children I drink. It's not bottled water. They like our home water. I know it's safe for them. And I'm sure with time, because they've been in this house, we moved in when my youngest was 11 months, my oldest was 11 months old. They've only had well water. Before that, she was bottled with bottled water. You know, in life, there's going to become a point where they're going to have to adapt to having some kind of fluoride in their water. But for right now, they're fine. They're healthy. I have medical documentation from their dentist that they cannot have fluoride. It makes them ill. So that's just my thing. It's rare, but that's one other thing. Another concern I have, and so I'm skipping. I'm sorry, I had this written down in order and I skipped. But going back to the laterals. So the people like me who do have the laterals in front, this agreement that they say is there that they're going to pay for the laterals, that doesn't take care of the other properties that are going to be tossed off that don't have the laterals. So they're going to have pay to have the laterals run from somewhere down the road all the way up to their house. So the $20,000 that I think would be coming off of the top of my bill estimated before, hooking up, they'll cover that, but what about the other property owners that don't have it? There's what is being given to help them out. That's not fair to them. I'm not saying I want to give mine up. I mean, if I have to, I appreciate that and I say thank you. But we don't want to be Sussex. We like our little rural community. Another thing, when we bought our house and for me to stay home, there's 2 properties bordering the back of my home. Both of their properties, one of them fully within my property boundaries and the others 3/4 in. Both those properties are city subdivisions. They're less than a third of the size of my property, yet they pay over $2,500 more a year in taxes. So I don't know, I have no idea what the tax base is going to be on my property when that comes. I would like someone to sit down and talk to me about that and see how that could go. So that's very concerning. Again, I'm actively looking for a job. But that's just, that's not what we signed up for when we bought our home. That's not the type of area we wanted to live in. Another thing, and it's been some talk a little bit here and there. Our property is across the street from the Butler Nature Preserve, which my understanding was donated by Mr. Butler years ago. And there's beautiful wildlife that lives there, and just, it's a beautiful little quiet oasis in town. It's a preserve, but I have seen over the years where communities have taken marshland and preserve land and fought with the DNR and got it filled in and got it taken away and got homes living there. Last month, I saw a discussion come up that the people of Sussex want pickleball courts. I'm not sure what it is, but you would need plumbing in there and stuff like that. The Butler Nature Preserve was an option to put those public courts in. So that would mean that there'd be like loud, crazy, obnoxious, whatever, like across the street, disturbing our silence, disturbing the animals that live there. It was, as I heard, decided against. I'm grateful for that, but I see their sights on taking that away as being a natural wildlife preserve. It's not something that hasn't been considered. I know I had another thought, but I know this is really sad, and I understand the need for formality and having everything together. But even if we have to become Sussex and be in the tight little box, why can't there be some kind of concession that we get to keep our well and our water and, get to maintain our rural lifestyle that we choose and we wanted and that we moved there for. So thank you for our time and for your time, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Bushki?
Jim and Carrie Bushke, North 72, West 24, 540 Good Hope Road in the town of Lisbon. I'm going to read the statement that I wrote. Our home has been in the town of Lisbon since my father built it in the early 80s. We are here to voice our opinions concerning the town of Lisbon and Village of Sussex proposed cooperative boundary plan, and if enacted, how detachment of our home and property from the town of Lisbon will impact us. Thank you for listening to our concerns today. We do not want our home to be detached from the town of Lisbon and become a property in the city of Sussex. The cooperative boundary plan will not enhance our property or home. In fact, it will become a financial, physical, and emotional burden. Financially, once detached, our home will be transferred to the Village of Sussex, which will not only mean higher property taxes, but there will also be a mandatory hookup to the Sussex City water and sewer system. We currently have a reliable, inexpensive, functioning water well and septic system on our property. We do not want the financial hardship of having to personally pay huge out-of-pocket costs to connect to the Sussex Public City Water and Sewer System that we simply do not need. We also do not want to pay for a monthly city water and sewer bill that we do not need. Not only will we have to pay for services we do not need, we will have to pay to rework landscape that will, without a doubt, be damaged and removed from our property for this hookup. Physically, because of the water and sewer hookup, any landscape damaged or removed will have to be reworked and cleanup done. This work will have to be done by us again because of a service we do not need. Emotionally, when the Village of Sussex installed sidewalks and a sewer system in front of our home in 2018 that we also did not have a choice in, we went through the stress of losing a portion of our front yard and trees my father planted, which had been on our property for 20+ years. As mentioned in our message to Eric, trees were cut down that we were not notified about. Losing trees my father planted was emotional for me. Now we will have to remove the replacement trees my children have since planted for me. There seems to be no regard given to our home or the burden of losing something that has meaning to us. We all know what the cooperative boundary plan between the town of Lisbon and the Village of Sussex ultimately means for the property owners here tonight. It means a negative financial hardship for everyone here. But the question I ask the State of Wisconsin Review Board is, will you give us a choice? Will you hear our voices? Things in the world are uncertain today. We have all seen the news. Talks of recession, depression, higher prices, and the stripping away of liberties. But what Jim and I do know is that no municipality in our country should have the right or the authority to come to your home and force you to take on a financial burden for something you do not need or want. And this is precisely what will happen should the cooperative boundary plan between the town of Lisbon and the Village of Sussex get passed. That is why we are all here tonight, hoping the State of Wisconsin Review Board will take what we have to say into consideration. Give us the choice to improve our homes on projects that are of real value, not on personally shelling out thousands of dollars into a city water and sewer system that none of us need or want. We have heard that we are not the first group of homeowners to face this forced transaction between the town of Lisbon and Village of Sussex. Did those homeowners express their public outrage or try to stop the process by legal means? We do not know. But we do know this group of homeowners have band together and are here today asking the State of Wisconsin Review Board to reject this agreement and tell the town and the village that you have heard our voices and we do have a choice. Our desired outcome is that our property remains in the town of Lisbon. We do not want to detach to the Village of Sussex. Thank you for allowing us to share our thoughts today. Please take what we have all said tonight into consideration.
Margaret Sutton, North 68, West 25424, Highway VV. I'm representing my mother, Mahela Rankin, who at 91 is the current owner of this property. For 6 generations, 179 years, our family members have resided in the town of Lisbon. 146 of those years have been on this land, contributing to the religious, political, and scholastic endeavors of the area. Our family is opposed to the current arrangement the town and village are proposing that forces us into the Village of Sussex by moving their territory line from east of our property to the western fence line. And I also question that, have we become problematic because the railroad and the hiking trail cut us off from the part of the town to our north? As of now, we only, in recent years, are abutted by Sussex on 2 sides, the west and the south. Our land bordering Highway VV is approximately 1,200 feet. And that's just, by my guesstimate, with the acreage there and the length of the driveway back to the house and then to the barn, the expense we would incur to hook up to water and sewer would be costly, not to mention the monthly assessment for which we incur none at this time. Our 150-foot well gives us good water, and we are assured our septic system is in good working order. In addition, we would expect our taxes to increase immediately upon becoming the Village of Sussex resident. That's not to say Lisbon's taxes won't also rise if they are allowed to incorporate as a village. We have an abundance of brush each year due to the size and agricultural use of our property that requires use of the town's burn permit. And we don't have the means to haul it to the village recycling center if we would be in Sussex. For generations, we have allowed bow hunters who have benefited from hunting on our land during various seasons. This would no longer be allowed. And what of animals and farm buildings? Would they no longer fit into the fading rural atmosphere? We hope we can afford to keep our property in the coming years so another generation has the opportunity to develop a love for the land and appreciate the open spaces that are rapidly fading from our growing community. Thank you.
John Schulte, West 240, North 7571 Maple Avenue. I'd like to apologize for my outburst. And I thank you folks for coming down and listening to our problems. Because it was a government for the people, by the people, right? I think I learned that in high school. I'm almost 81. On Social Security, I followed, first of all, when they paved Maple Avenue and they put the water and sewer lines in, I was reading the plans along with the engineer that was there. I discovered a few problems, which some of these folks have brought up. Originally, to take you back on the timeline, on the Frannel property, the Village of Sussex developed a well. And this was to, I think, alleviate the radium problem. Percentage of, it's used as a blending well to blend the existing water from the other wells in Sussex. At that time, when they decided that they wanted to put this in, we met with Jeremy Smith, the village administrator. I had a meeting at my house and we had all the neighbors together. And at that time, Jeremy Smith told us, all you folks, you'll never have to worry about hooking up to the water because I'm giving you my word right now. You won't have to. So that's how much I trust that guy. Anything done with the Village of Sussex or the Village Lisbon has to be done in writing for sure. Any proposals that they have, we'd have to have another meeting. And we'd have to see that in writing because we cannot trust these people. When they put in the road, the new road on Maple Avenue, because I got to know the engineer who sat in his car and he inspected everything for the state or the city or Sussex or whoever was putting it in. I said, why are you stubbing in these laterals on the opposite side of my property? Oh, he says, you don't want them there? I says, it would be ridiculous.
My house is on the other side of the driveway, on the other side of the lot. These people from the village of Sussex, when they created this road and these other roads like on Good Hope and so forth, they never contacted any of the property owners of where they might have to stub in the laterals. It costs $12,000 to rip up the road and bring the laterals to your property line. Now, that doesn't include the cost of hooking up or any of these other things. These guys are, I don't know where they got their degree in engineering. But when I think a lot of these people here can testify to the fact that where they put the laterals in is, it doesn't make sense. They just, somebody drew a line on a piece of paper and, hey, let's put it there. I think the town of Lisbon and village of Sussex should be responsible for that lateral being brought to the property line. Because it isn't our mistake, it's their mistake. And it isn't a mistake, it's an engineering oversight. People that you pay a lot of money for, to engineer these things. Being almost 81 and having to connect to the sewer and water is not at an expense that I can go in my back pocket and pull that kind of money out. And a lot of these other people, if you drive through the area, if you really look at the plan, most of these houses sit quite a distance back from the road. And this isn't like the city of Milwaukee where you have 40-foot lots and you're going back 30 feet. I mean, we're talking about houses that are 130 feet. A lot of these people have existing septic and well systems that run from their back of their house. You're talking about some real big bucks. Thank you once again. And maybe we can solve this problem. But I'm going to tell you, we're going to have to look into it a heck of a lot more. This can't happen.
Michael Walsh. And then it'll be Jason Wagner.
Well, just a couple things to say, please. Well, ever since the town of Lisbon canceled the former agreement, my wife and I have sort of felt like hostages on our own land. We'd like to make improvements or some changes to our home and on our land, but we face tens of thousands of dollars in either how you call it penalties or taxes just for being on the wrong side of the road. Our yard is fairly large with several big vegetable gardens, numerous flower beds. We plant trees almost yearly. Last year when we experienced a drought, we used our well often and to keep things growing. And we'd like to continue using that well. We are in our mid-60s, retired, and hope our health allows us to maintain our current lifestyle for at least another 20 years or so. It may seem trivial, but things like keeping our chickens and just being able to have our garbage picked up near my house rather than carting it down to a busy roadside are important to us as we age. We feel after 30 years plus paying taxes and being responsible citizens, retaining our current status in Lisbon up until a newly agreed upon specified time, such as maybe 20, 30 years or sale of such property would be reasonable and fair. Thank you.
And then followed by Jody Mark.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Wagner, and I reside at West 235 N 7585 Woodside Road in Lisbon, Wisconsin. I would like to start by thanking the members of the state for granting us the opportunity for this public hearing and taking the time this afternoon to hear my and others' concerns with the proposed Lisbon Sussex 660307 municipal agreement. I would like to preface my comments on this agreement with an expansion of some history and why we're here today. Elaborate a little bit on Mr. Riffel's previous comments at the beginning of the hearing tonight. On July 2nd, 2020, 64 property owners in the town of Lisbon received a letter from the Lisbon interim clerk stating that the town and the village were proposing a new intermunicipal agreement under state statute 660301, and a public hearing will be held on July 23rd, 2020. This new 660301 agreement would, in the town's and village's own words, supersede a previous year 2001 agreement that was struck in Waukesha County courts after mediation under 660207 or 027. Our investigation of the new 2020 municipal agreement language revealed new detachment stipulations on these 64 properties that a vast number of these affected property owners believe to be onerous and undue. Additionally, the property owners believe that the language and stipulations within the agreement were outside of municipal's legal and authoritative abilities, were an infraction of rights afforded to the property owners by the state of Wisconsin, and an infraction of equal property rights afforded in Wisconsin Universal Building Codes. None of these properties were or are title bound by any agreements, and none of these properties were consulted as the year 2020 660301 agreement was being drafted. The July 23rd, 2020 public hearing was attended by many of the property owners. As you can see here, many of them are here tonight, asking for the ability to pause the process and sit down with the town to discuss the proposed 66301 agreement. The town chairman, Mr. Osterman, verbally stated he would create a citizens committee of the property owners to discuss the new 66301 agreement language, hear our concerns, and see what could be done to assist us financially and other before enacting. We soon discovered that after reaching out to the town of Lisbon that this committee would never be formed or convened. And in our interpretation, the conversations on creating this committee were just a delay tactic to expire our ability to contest the 66301 agreement. In this light, a vast majority of the property owners came together and exercised their rights to petition for a referendum afforded to us by the 660301 statute. We created and effectively circulated our petition in time we filed the petitions with the municipalities. In an email response and formal letter from the town of Lisbon stated we had met the requirements of the petition, but would not be holding a referendum as they contested our filing the official petition documents with the municipalities. Upon this action, property owners garnered legal advice, and I filed suit with Waukesha County courts to clarify filing language in the 660301 statute. I'm happy to say that the clarification of state statute was in the property owner's favor, and the town of Lisbon has finally capitulated to holding the referendum on the 2020 6603 agreement, and the property owners wholeheartedly plan on voting down the current agreement when it comes before us. So that brings us to meeting with you today. As you can see, it has been a long process since July 2nd of 2020 to have our voices heard by the town of Lisbon, and they still resist to this day. The town of Lisbon and the village of Sussex expect us to be successful in voting down the current 6603 agreement, and they have moved forward creating the 660307 agreement before you now. Once again, including these properties as shown in the detachment exhibit, and once again, not consulting these affected properties. Owners effectively silencing us once again. The municipalities have specifically chosen the 660307 avenue to eliminate our abilities to contest the new agreement, and has eliminated any detachment trigger language, so as detachment under this new agreement would be immediate. Your effective acknowledgement that the 660307 agreement in its current form is sufficient would immediately detach all of our properties from the town of Lisbon to the village of Sussex, thus immediately silencing our opinions and property rights. This new agreement language does not reach the legal definition of an eminent domain, but certainly smacks of similar elements and approaches the regulatory taking of property as it erodes the property owner's legal rights, economically reasonable use of their property, and the fundamental enjoyment of their properties as afforded to them via state law and many years of town of Lisbon zoning and permitting precedents. Many of these properties will be immediately served with deferred assessments, as you have heard tonight, for utility improvements made by the village of Sussex, some reaching $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. RCA fees, utility fees amounting to another $6,000 per property, and additionally being imposed with a 10-year timeline to connect to sewer and water services. Many of these property owners are retired, as you have heard tonight, And these fees, levies, improvements would in many cases approach to a quarter to half of their entire property value. The current enforced 2020 agreement encourages detachment. The 2020 agreement before you just forces detachment. In the last year, Lisbon has attempted enforcing detachment on a retired individual who wanted a permit for replacing their furnace, a cancer patient who wanted a permit for installing a home generator to their property, a family that wanted to expand their home for their growing family, and the list goes on. All under the erroneous guise that these permit actions would be detachable actions for the current agreement and their perceived legal authority. The town of Lisbon has enacted fear in these property owners that any action to maintain, manage, or enjoy their property result in the punishment of immediate detachment. This proposed 660307 in language related to Exhibit F you have before you essentially is punishing these property owners for speaking up and requesting our rights be acknowledged. I and the rest of these property owners have rights, fundamental property rights that exceed municipal rights afforded by the state. Many of these properties are not islands. They are border properties. None of these property owners, island or not, necessarily wish to detach. We are satisfied with our current situations, and for the town of Lisbon to unilaterally and immediately dispose of our properties for their own selfish gains is a travesty of representative government. The town wishes to cast us aside to feed their voracious appetite for municipal incorporation that even to this day many Lisbon residents do not want. They write in this document that the detachment action is in the effort to create good government under the reasonable development and management of spaces. They need to bring our properties into the fold so they can achieve compactness. I call to you look at the proposed layout of the municipal boundaries before you in Exhibit F, H, and how a reasonable individual could determine compactness is a function of any of the proposed municipal boundaries. There are entire sections isolated from the town of Lisbon, current and proposed services. How is this responsible government, whereas services are so vastly distributed and the village only has one option for partnering of services in the future? This town states they need this agreement to stop the decimation of their landmass and other municipal annexations. This is a false fact, as a majority of the landmass lost to other municipalities has been due to the town of Lisbon facilitating these actions, such as now with our properties. The town of Lisbon plays the victim card, but in truth, they are the aggressor. It is evident in the language allowed in this document pertaining to these Exhibit F properties, among other hostile language that has negatively affected the entirety of the town and village taxpayers. However, I digress. The town has not enforced or has best selectively enforced attachment language over the last 20 years, thus setting the precedent that the attachment language in the year 2001 agreement was at best a moot point. A vast majority of property owners did not even know that their properties were included in an attachment clause of a joint agreement, as it was never enforced, never bound in property titles, or conveyed to owners. We do not wish to be in the way of the town and village's joint agreement. We are just looking to minimize as much as we can the impact of our properties. The property owners have made motions to the town and village that we will be willing to negotiate our detachment to the village of Sussex. The village of Sussex was receptive when we reached out to them, and I can say that the candid, informal what-if conversations property owners have had with the village of Sussex have been encouraging. But the town, our current representatives, have refused to meet with their constituents that have only minimally conversed through legal channels. The village has graciously offered to pay $1.4 million to deferred sewer and water rights, right-of-way assessments, and associated interests, which would benefit about approximately 50% of these properties that are in question. However, this does nothing for the remaining properties that will have future assessments, some impending within the year, as construction is passing their properties right now, but to date, they have not been served with deferred assessment letters by the village of Sussex. The village has additionally offered continuation of current Lisbon zoning until a property ownership transfers, reviews of feasibility termination for a property to connect to sewer and water surfaces, discussions on continuation of use of well and septic systems, but none of this language is made into a written document or agreement. Our concerns have not been incorporated in any fashion into this document language, but yet other property owners, properties owned by past town supervisors and incorporation supporters have been afforded language on deferred detachment and service extensions as part of this agreement. As an end note, I need to disclose to you that I'm a past Village of Sussex trustee. I served for the Village of Sussex for 8 years. I'm sure the town's legal representation will notice this to you. The town's representatives have accused me of colluding with the Village of Sussex in the matter due to my past associations. This is a falsehood. I am one of the affected property owners. I own properties in both communities. I stand with these residents in their plight to protect their properties from hostile actions that the municipal agreement affords, and I'm putting my voice forward in an effort to minimize the impact to myself and these properties and these people if detachment is imposed upon us. In summary, we respectively strongly encourage you to reject the 660307 agreement before you and send this document back to the municipalities with request that the Exhibit F detachment situation be resolved through incorporating items that have been verbally offered to us in the refined document, in a refined document. We are asking for review and inclusion of the following language, if receptive, in this agreement. Choice of being included in detachment areas, choice of deferred detachments, deferred detachments of a quantitative amount of years for properties agreeing to be detached, incorporation of language for payment of $1.4 million of deferred assessments, incorporation of language absolving future unlevied deferred assessments, continuation of current town of Lisbon zoning and property rights, payment of RCA, residential connection assessments to Sussex water and sewer utilities, continuation of well and septic systems and systemic failure of those specific systems, determination letter of feasibilities for each property connect to sewer and water systems, affording extended timelines for connection to sewer and water services beyond 10 years. I thank you for your time today and appreciate the commission's hearing our comments and concerns. I hope you review our comments and find the proposed 660307 agreement insufficient and call for further review by the municipalities on the items discussed. Your department has my contact information if any member of the state commission has any questions or clarifications on my or others' comments made to you today. Please reach out to me and I will promptly respond. Thank you.
Could I ask a question? So you said you talked about a deferral parcel, deferred.
There's
Request?
one property that is deferred.
Is that the tax parcel LS?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's a whole nother story we don't need to dive into it, but. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Jody Marks, followed by Philip Reeves.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jody Marks. I live at North 63 West 24535 Silver Spring. I'm a lifelong resident of the town of Lisbon. I own my home. I pay my taxes. I'm involved in the livelihood of both of these communities. This proposed agreement feels like a punishment for being a good citizen. Being given to the village would increase my property taxes approximately $1,500 for no real gain in services to me. I will be responsible for the costs surrounding sewer and water hookups and the added cost of closing a well and a septic system. The costs that I will face if this agreement stands as it is mean the difference between retiring or not retiring to me. It is a hard pill to swallow to consider what amounts to a new mortgage payment for an additional 10 years in order to live in a home I was born in, grew up in, and now own. I also need to find a way to do this on a single income. If I would choose to sell, I would still be responsible for these costs, and there's no way that I could make enough money on the sale of my house to be able to purchase a new home. If anything goes wrong in my future, if I cannot work or if I get sick and accrue medical bills and become disabled, I face the very real possibility of losing the home I own, being unable to pay for the costs this proposed agreement would force upon me. The agreement we are here today to meet on addresses nothing that we have been told will be done. There's no specific mention on the proposed use of the 1.4 million that has been verbally offered to offset our RCA fees. Please put this and the terms of its distribution into this agreement. This proposed agreement does not address delaying detachments, a continuation of our current zoning, or any thought to being allowed to continue the use of our own wells and septic systems. This current agreement allows us no real say in our right to live where we chose to live. I respectfully ask the state to send this proposed agreement back, and I ask that the village and the town boards meet with us to work together to fix all of this, as was once offered but never followed through on. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Hi, thank you for hearing all of us. I hope you are hearing us. I really do. I'm one of the houses on Maple Avenue where they put the laterals in on the wrong side. It's on the north. My septic comes out of the back of the house on the south. I'm 165 feet off the road, and it has to go underneath my driveway, cross my front yard, all the way in the back, all the way around. I have a 3-tank system. And this gentleman here was talking about it, the systems fail. There's, yeah, maybe in 100 years. I have a 3-tank system and I paid extra for that, just for that. So that system will never fail. And I have perfectly great water. There's nothing wrong with the water. And I don't see how we are not a communist country. I pay for my land. I live on my land, and they want to move me. So it's going to cost me so much more money that I can't afford. COVID almost killed my company. So I can barely even make it now. I'm just starting to see light again. Okay. And then they want to post all these fees and everything else on us that we can't afford. None of us can. I don't know if you guys were ever in this situation, but there's no way I can afford this. There's no way. I'm going to have to sell. How am I going to sell a house when the next owner has to go through this, and I'm going to lose money on the sale of my house, and I'm depending that for my retirement. So that's what I'm building all this for, is my retirement, because I won't have one. They're going to take it. Sussex is going to take it. And I didn't ask for this. I don't want to be in Sussex. I don't have any kids in school. I don't need any of their services. Not one service I need. And when they built this road and put all this sewer and stuff in, I had beautiful trees along the road. I didn't want this road. I opposed this road also. And they didn't care. They took all the trees down. They left a mess. I have trees down in my yard. I have tree stumps that they never took out. Almost everybody's property is beautiful right by their driveway on each end. They left mounds of dirt just sitting there. I asked them, me and my neighbor, we both talked to the town, and I called, and yeah, we'll take care of it. It's not taken care of. They don't do what they say. They're to me, I can't trust them. I can't trust them at all. And I don't want to be in Sussex. I really don't. So thank you for hearing me.
Well, I'm John Binder. I own the property on North 71 West 24433 Good Hope Road. I'm opposed to going into the village of Sussex. I want to stay in the town of Lisbon. A little history. I bought this house in 2018, knew nothing about this. I bought the house to help out my son who grew up here, wanted to come back and live here. So I bought it so him and his family can grow up there, my grandkids. And all of a sudden, he's looking at this huge expanse. I can't sell him the house because I'm going right into Sussex. So I still own the house. I want to just tell you this, we are not an island. We are on my house that I own there is on the west side of Maple Avenue. We're on the south side of Good Hope. And every home on that side of the road, all the way to the end of Good Hope Road, is in the town of Lisbon. With this agreement, they're gonna take 4 homes, and then we're gonna be in Sussex, and the rest of the homes are in town of Lisbon. They talk about islands, and I understand that, you know, jagged lines, not straight lines. We're still gonna have it. No matter what agreement is, you're still gonna have that. So this is gonna be a financial burden on me. I'm retired, and what am I gonna gain from this? I'm gonna gain increased taxes, enormous sewer and water hookups, because they put the lateral on the wrong side of the driveway, just like almost everybody else here. So I'll have to pay to have that plus hookup to the house. It's a huge expense. What am I losing? I'm losing an excellent septic system, great well. We don't have a problem with it. And I don't, if this goes through, I don't want to have to hook up to sewer and water unless it fails, not maintain. If it fails, I'd be willing to hook up. And the zoning rights are going to change. You know, my grandkids they have a fire pit in the backyard. They love going back there and having friends over, and we're having fires. I've talked to the president of Sussex, and he said he'd be willing to work with us, but nothing's in writing. Just like everybody else has said, we need all these things in writing. They have to be written down, so there's no confusion anymore. I appreciate the 1.4 million. If I'm forced to go in, you know, they're going to pay for that assessment across the front of the road. That's a little bit of help. Not a lot, but it's a help. But the town of Lisbon hasn't offered us nothing. They sort of took us like garbage down to the road, and we're just blowing down the street. They don't care about us. We had a meeting with Joe Osterman and the whole Lisbon town, and there was a motion that Joe Osterman made on September 14th, 2020, that we'll have this committee and we'll hear you guys and we'll work with you. And we had the people in our group, some of them that were going to get up and be on the committee, and we've called and nothing. So they kept pushing us off, just like everybody else said here. And they come up with a new agreement now, just so, well, we'll just get rid of them. This is not fair. There is one home that has a delayed attachment on Richmond Road. And if they can do it for one home, they should be able to do it for the rest of us. Yeah, I think that's the only fair way to do. What I'm looking for is I want 30-year deferred detachment on my property. And I want my property to be grandfathered in so I can transfer this home to my son, and he lives out the rest of the deferred detachment. I think that's only fair. If you do it for one, you should be able to do it for the rest. I really appreciate you listening to me, listening to everybody here. I hope you side and send this back. Thank you.
Hi, Robert Klingelhoots. I'm on Good Hope with all my neighbors here. Good job on my last name, by the way. Not many people get that right. So anyway, I've been living in town of Lisbon since 1979. So 43 years, and obviously we enjoy living out there. This proposed border agreement has caused so much angst and stress on 64 families, as you can tell by the very passionate pleas for your help. And a lot of it's over the expense that we're incurring potentially. I mean, the quick list is, you know, the road assessment thing that Sussex is, well, for me, it was the biggest one, $60,000 for the pipes in the road. Sussex, to their credit, has figured out a way to take care of that. And I appreciate that. Again, like people mentioned, it's not in writing. So at a bare minimum, I'm really hoping you send this back and say, write this stuff in there, or make an amendment or an addendum. I don't care what you call it, have it written down. The next thing, Sussex has a mandatory hookup sewer charge. I think it's approximately $5,800. I personally would like to see the town of Lisbon come up with some money to offset that, because they haven't got any skin in this game from my viewpoint, at least. And this 10-year mandate to hook up, it's asinine to me. When everybody has a very good water well and a sewer system, a septic system that works, you're going to be shelling out boo-hoo bucks for what? Lesser quality water. And you're going to be getting bills every month for stuff you already got for free. I mean, that's just dumb. So to net everything out, I understand the border agreement is an important step for the town of Lisbon to get incorporated. And in general, I'm not opposed to that. What I am not happy with is that we have to work this out so that it's reasonably fair to all parties. That means we need to get together and talk as 3 different parties: Sussex, Lisbon, and the homeowners that are affected here. And I think it can be worked out. All we're asking for is that we don't trample on financially, that, I mean, nobody can afford to live anymore because they're gonna be paying all this money in fees for stuff we don't need. And I guess if there's one thing, I'm hoping that you can send it back and basically say, you guys work it out and get it all documented. Because right now, these families here are not happy with the proposed thing. And I think that's pretty much it. I appreciate you giving me the chance to let you know how we feel.
Thank you.
Man, I don't like to hear my name. Well, save the best for last. I don't think so. A lot of eloquent speakers here. I have a question for the attorney first, though. Can I do that? Just, or maybe it was in reference to what you asked him. If, yes, does that mean we don't have 10 years? Okay, okay.
Well, the statute says the planning period can be 10 years. It doesn't say anything in terms, it really doesn't relate to timing of detachment. But we're asking for the waiver of.
Can we get on the microphone?
Why don't I answer after you finish? Okay. Unless you.
That's fine. Well, in reference to that, you know, he mentioned it's rip off the bandage and get it done. Well, in my opinion, that's amputation to me, because I need to come up with that money like now. And rip off the bandage. No, let the air heal it a while, take some time for healing. You know, to me, that was a very poor analogy. He also, in his beginning comments, said that once and for all, finally put together a boundary agreement. And then he said, it's a very good plan. He said, also referencing that plan, it's a divorce settlement. Well, I'm married 43 years, happily married, never part of a divorce. My parents were married. But I do know in a divorce, the kids get hurt. Okay, the kids have no say. Parents do what they got to do, the lawyers do what they got to do. Well, I feel like I'm in a divorce here. We had no say, and here this is happening. You know, as a result of this, no say in a democracy. My wife and I, we've invested along with these people considerable amounts of money into lawyers, which should not have been the way to go. Again, as it's been stated, we're happy you're listening to our cause here, to our opinions. But this is just, it's been mentioned a lot of times, the money, the taxes, the monthly water bill, sewage bill, whatever. It just, you know, getting rid of this, you guys heard it. We don't have that kind of money. We don't want to spend that kind of money. Okay, our well, our septic is good to go. Okay, we're going to be retiring soon. I already get Social Security. My wife in a few more years. And we're trying to bring our monthly bills down. In the last month or so, and not because of this meeting, just thinking, how can we change our light bulbs to LED? Okay, what else can we do? So we've been learning about solar, okay? And we've talked to a few solar companies, had different prices put before us. And it's all to bring the monthly bill down. And we were within 1 hour of signing on a dotted line. And it was not where we had to put money out. It was no money up front, they pay, and then what we save, it goes toward our bill on electric. Anyway, it was a wash. It was like, this is a no-brainer. Why don't more people have solar panels, okay? But 1 hour before we signed, Julie said, when I'm talking to the man, she said, Jim, we sign up, this is more than $5,000. So anyway, we couldn't do solar. And he mentioned, Mike did about being hostage. Well, that was a very good example of that. But anyway, I'm up here nervous, very nervous, but I want to go on record, I and my family, we don't want this. We don't agree with it, the way it's happened. We too believe there's been some things that weren't truthful brought forth to us, and it's just not good. And I do thank you, and I hope, thank you.
All right, thank you. That is all the testimony slips I have received so far. If you would like to offer additional testimony, please fill out a slip and bring it up front. Otherwise, okay, thank you. So if you'd like to testify, Ryan Weister.
My name's Brian Weister. My property is at West 239, North 7562 Maple Ave. You almost got it. This comment. So I'll just, a few comments from hearing everything today, then I can read my letter. So first off, I guess I'll give it a different perspective. I'm not in Social Security. I'm a little younger, but just go on record that I can't afford this either. And, you know, just because I'm not on Social Security doesn't mean I don't have a fixed income as well. So I don't think anybody can really bear an additional expenses or possibly, you know, $50,000, $100,000 fee to hook up. So the moral of the story I'm seeing though is essentially it's a huge expense that none of us can afford. And I understand the logic of boundaries, but this really seems unethical to force unknown charges and fees to residents because of municipality inefficiencies that were generated years ago. And Stan even admitted here today that they want to add more residents, us, in order to lower their costs for water and sewer. So I look at it like essentially they're adding sewer and water lines to increase their revenues and are making us pay for the construction costs and becoming forced customers who bear all these expenses. So that just doesn't seem like an ethical business proposal. Another thing, I just bought this house 4 years ago and I did a legal real estate transaction, went through Shore West, everything went fine. Did a title search, nothing showed up about this. So I had no idea that this was even a thing. So, you know, I bought something 4 years ago and all of a sudden now there could be something a fee that could be a third of the cost of when I bought this property. So that's just crazy. And the 1.4 million, yes, I agree that needs to be in writing because it's just been hearsay so far. So if they're going to give us something, that should definitely be in writing. And then this is my official letter, I guess. I do not wish for my property to be annexed for various reasons. Sussex installed new water and sewer main lines parallel to Maple Ave in front of my property and requested that I pay special assessment for this construction work. I feel I should not be accountable for any costs related to construction Sussex completed while my property was in Lisbon. I did not request this construction work to be carried out, and the charges could be around $15,000 to $20,000. Sussex would require I hook up to the new sewer and water lines if annexed in. However, my property has a functioning well and septic system. Extra expenses required to run the sewer and water lines to my property, which is about 150 feet, and my septic is in the back of the house. would be very expensive, and possibly not even feasible. As my current septic, as I mentioned, is in the back of the house on the opposite side of the road. So the property owner should not have to bear these substantial costs, as I did not request this annexation. Sewer line work to run just from the road to my house could be like $50,000 possibly. So I ask for empathy for an average homeowner such as myself and everybody else here, that having an unexpected charge approaching $75,000 is financially devastating to anybody. So thus, I wish for my property to stay in Lisbon, and if it is annexed into, if annexation in Sussex is deemed legally required for my property, then I would graciously ask Sussex and Lisbon to help cover all costs, not just the annexation and hookup fees, but everything, running a line to my house, capping a septic tank. Those are unexpected costs that I would normally not have to bear. And if it is deemed not feasible or not logical to connect to sewer and water for my property or other properties, since it's so far away or below grade, then I would request the option to not hook up to sewer and water if annexation is forced on our properties. Thanks.
All right, thank you. So the Dines, you submitted a slip. Is this just to register in opposition? Okay, thank you. All right, Philip Reeves.
I did forget something. If you guys look at those border lines, for some reason, my neighbor directly to the north, he's maybe what, 100 feet from me. He is not in this. He's gonna stay in town Lisbon. But then right up past him, that's Sussex. So if you don't want islands, how is that possible? How is that possible? It's the house directly north to me. So.
All right, Corey Smith, followed by Thomas Novak.
Thank you very much for being here also. I pretty much agree with everything everybody said here. I don't want to hash it all over again. Just to say that I think my proposed assessment was 50,000 plus. That of course does include the laterals to the house and that, which is an unbearable cost. And I don't know how you could just force that on me. So I would be, willing certainly to agree to something. Again, if it was in writing, like everybody says, be part of a negotiation. If that assessment were waived and I didn't have to connect until my system fails, I'd be happy to connect then, be happy to pay the higher taxes and be in Sussex. If that's the negotiation, I'd be okay with that. But please ask that this isn't forced upon us, this financial hardship. And I just hope you help us out. Thank you.
All right, Thomas, followed by Kurt and Sharon. No. Okay, it's registering, sorry.
Hello, my name is Thomas Novacek. I live at West 239 North 7596 Maple Avenue. My wife and son and I moved here 4 or 5 years ago. Our son has Down syndrome, and we were looking for a better school situation for him than we had in Milwaukee, and so far so good. But everyone's basically said everything that I was hoping to say. I'm sure you guys are probably getting sick of hearing about the cost, but that is the number one thing. Everybody here is basically, doesn't have the money for it. You can't expect people who are on retirement or to use their savings or their pensions or whatever it might be. It's gonna ruin people's qualities of life. And I know that's not necessarily what you guys are here for, but there's got to be a solution. And there have been people have mentioned deferred detachment, and that was something that was brought up. We've had so many different meetings and town halls and things like that over the last year and a half. it's been hours and hours and hours, but people, we have been notified or informed of, the possibility of maybe requesting deferred detachment of a substantial number of years. And so I'd like that to be something that would be considered 20, 30 years. I mean, most of us won't be around much past that. So I'm thinking that if incorporation is the goal here for Lisbon, if there's a deferred detachment agreement that allows us to basically stay as we are with the date being set well into the future as to when we are detached from Lisbon, I think a lot of people would be very receptive to that as a proposal. Another thing that I wanted to mention was, with the voluntarily stricken down agreement that they had from 2001 or 1999, whichever one it is, that's gone, and they're starting up with trying to get a new one passed. I'm just wondering why they can't come up with new boundaries that would work for a lot of us here. Something that would be just beneficial for a lot of the 63 families that are affected by this. And one last comment that I have: all the meetings that I've been to, and I've been to almost every single one, whether it's town halls, village halls, public hearings, whatever, not one person has come up and spoken in favor of this agreement. It's always been just the village and the town that are in favor of it. Nobody from the public has come up and offered their agreement with it. So just as a little side note. So thank you for coming. Thank you for hearing us. And we hope that you guys hear our opposition and send it back and so we can all come to the table and just come to an agreement that works for everybody. Thank you.
All right, that is all the testimony slips that I have. Oh, one more coming. Thank you. So I guess Kirsten, followed by John.
Sorry, guys. I did remember what I wanted to talk about before, and it's a big thing. The water. We're a family of 4, 2 teenage girls, my husband and I. Currently, with our functioning well and septic, every 3 years we get our septic pumped and inspected. It's $300 and change every 3 years. So $100 a year for our water. A little bit more if you consider the electricity pumping the well. My friend who lives smack dab in the middle of Sussex, a teenage girl, a teenage boy, and her husband, her same size family, but with a boy. So they don't shower, they shower, but anyhow, she pays $100 a month for her water and sewer, which over a 3 years time is $3,600. So right now I pay $300 a month over 3 years time. This can be a difference of $3,300 over, which doesn't sound bad, but that's on top of, that's what we're all looking at for our water bills, for something that we don't pay for now, that we pay $8 a month for now, maybe, give or take, if you divide out the 3 years of getting our septics pumped. So $8 a month as opposed to $100 a month is a big, big change. So, thank you again. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for my craziness. John?
John Fogarino, I'm on Good Hope Road. I don't consider myself an island property. I probably have 4 properties to the west of me. I have 6, 7 properties to the east of me. I have a couple to the south of me. Other than that, a lot of Sussex area. This isn't something I asked for. 40 years ago, I moved into the town of Lisbon, not Sussex. This is their problem. They're the ones who are greedy, taking property from other townships. They should cover everything. First of all, I don't want to go at all. I want to stay where I'm at. You've heard it all. My water's good. I'm retired. I can't afford it. Everything else goes along with it.
All right, I still don't, that is the last of the slips I have. I'm going to say it again. So what I'm going to do is I am going to invite the Village of Sussex and the Town of Lisbon to come and give concluding thoughts at this time.
I don't really have any concluding thoughts unless you have questions. I only point out that certainly, you know, these folks are facing some hardship. I don't know that that is in your lap as it relates to the responsibility of the Department of Administration and its responsibilities under 660307. However, I would remind you that folks have 10 years to prepare for this. And that is some saving grace in that there will be no requirement to hook up immediately. There'll be a requirement to hook up in 10 years. And there's always, you know, politics of the situation that deal with people addressing their own boards, getting their own people elected over that period of time and addressing this matter through the political process to determine whether or not that these issues, these grievances can be resolved through the local government. So certainly, you know, it's heart rending. I mean, all of this is, but you've got 36 square miles that we're dealing with here in terms of how it all fits together. I'm happy that these folks recognize that there was a huge commitment on the part of the village, and I've been assured by the village president. I don't know if it's already been through a resolution resolved with regard to the commitment on the payment of the special assessments. I would like to clear that one up.
So upon the previous public hearings where the citizens have come forward to the Village of Sussex, the village board directed staff to explore possibilities to address some of the special assessments that have been went against the properties over the years. These are not new. Some of them are new, but some of them have been decades old because these lands were scheduled to come to the village for many, many years. And so in preparation for that, the village was expanding its water and sewer system. You're not going to bypass properties that are in between the islands. You're going to run it by. And so there is about $1.4 million worth of outstanding special assessments to the properties in the town of Lisbon. So the village board asked staff to explore that. We were able to, in partnership with Land and Stone Corporation, which is benefiting from some of the water provision to the town of Lisbon, agreed to donate $1.4 million to cover those special assessments. So it is not the village paying those special assessments. It is a donation. We do not control how it's used for the terms of that donation. It just goes and applies to those outstanding special assessments. That formal agreement is going to be, it's finalized. It's going to be on an upcoming village board to accept the donation. It comes over time. But again, it's not, it will cover those $1.4 million, but we don't get to dictate how it's used. It goes to the schedule of special assessments from the donation by the Land and Stone Corporation.
So with that, if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer. If you have, upon reflection tonight, any additional questions, which happens sometimes with staff, just shoot those over to me on behalf of both municipalities and we will get them answered immediately.
Okay, thank you. And we will be here until 6 o'clock. So we do have,
When you're past
which
it.
is now 6 o'clock. Okay. Thank you. All right, then due to it being 6 o'clock and we've heard all testimony, we'll consider this meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming out tonight, everyone. Thank you.